Going back in time, there was a moment in which I was studying the economy, I was studying the markets and the monetary systems throughout the world. And essentially, instead of reading through news and reading through the narrative that is being told to people, I started to look upon things by my own eyes without having something to read that is essentially a perception from some other people. And with time, I got to understand how the economic system and the monetary system works. And I also got to understand why we are convinced of living life like we are on cities, which is essentially to work for 30, 40 years and essentially just spending pretty much all your lifetime working for others, which means that your life, even if you don't want to admit it, is pretty much all based upon you working. So we can all agree, for as much as it bothers, that if you spend your life in around 40 years working, you're pretty much a money making machine. And in most cases, you may realize you're making that money and that doesn't really fulfill you in any aspect. You don't have an amazing life, you're not really happy, and you keep going into making money without even thinking about the purpose of doing this life this way. So I just went back in time to understand what really happened to us and why are we living life without thinking on the reasons why we live like this. And essentially, we are just behaving, copying other people that are living around us and the people that just raised us like our family. Essentially, people just copy behavior and think this is the way to do things. But before was different. So before industrial times, you knew there was an open slavery in which people were being enslaved by force and they were pretty much aware they were slaves and they had to work without wanting to provide money for others that were slaving them. And in industrial times, because of all the developments in technology, it was necessary to scale the way people were working for others. And the slaves were not really the best way to make people work because people were objectively being forced. So they were not really being as useful as we are today to work for others. So instead of forcing people objectively into being slaves, what they done was to create a system that is on television and essentially mass media communication and also the school system. Those systems are always operating, sending messages to you, information. And essentially, since the moment you're born, you are being taught of being an employee and to work for 30, 40 years because this is the way everyone does, this is the way you should do. And if you realize you never question this in your life, because the moment you start to question things, start to open your mind and understanding there's actually a way out of this system. So you're not questioning because you were taught not to question. Back in school, most professors, in a way, teach you or show you that if you make a question that is not properly done or not applicable, in a way it means you're dumb. So because you don't want to be looked upon as a dumb person, you don't make questions. So any questions that regards the whys to things are this way, people stop to do it. People just accept things as being the reality that we have to live on. They don't understand it's an option. There's actually a way out if you look upon it. So, because you're raised thinking of what is your dream work, but as an employee, if you realize, since you are a kid, they are convincing you to be an employee. You are working for a career to be yourself an employee. It doesn't matter where, but if you realize the standardized system just will make you be an employee. Only if you understand how the economic machine works, which is never taught in any place for people, you understand that you can be the one building an infrastructure for people to work to you or for you. And then essentially you don't have to be working for others. And the objective here is to free yourself from work so that you don't have to work for 40 years or 30 years like most people. Because you don't have to be a slave to work for that long. You can build your own infrastructure, your own businesses, and people working for you will provide you money. And because the reality is operating this way, you will always help people that need to work in order for them to sustain their lives. So in a way, you're not the bad guy by being an entrepreneur and employing people, because you didn't really start this world in which we live. In fact, one of my objectives is to make people see the truth and see there's a way out. They don't have to be slaves of work for 40 years. This is an option. That's why I'm not working anymore. And I can tell you, the moment you stop to work as a 9 to 5, you understand that your world actually changes. You get so much free time for you that you get to question all life itself and everything that you are, and the source of the beginnings of time, in which you can understand actually how things change throughout time, throughout history, to actually make sense of the present as it is. Because most of us, we don't live that long, so we don't really have a big time frame to compare things. But if you look into history, you understand there were different times. You understand that before the industrial time, before this slavery machine that is undergoing and no one actually is aware of, people were happier. They were not working as they are today. People were living as they wanted more than today, because they had a lot of time free for themselves. And even back in slavery, there was a smaller fraction of people being slaves, and even those people, they were working less amount of hours than some people that are working today. So this is important to understand, because we don't know this. Since we got into this place, we were convinced of living life pretty much like everyone. But if you start to look back in time, with a big time frame, you understand actually there's a why to everything. There's a why to people are convinced of living like this, because some people have in their minds, they always knew there was another option. Because when there's a line for you to go and they tell you the ways forward, and you don't walk to any other place, you don't look to the side, you know there's more to it. The moment you start to look to the side, or you start to go into a different path, you understand you can make your own path the way you want. And you can set your rules to your own life and essentially live in a way that no one is living. But it makes a lot of sense for you, because it's a way that is entangled with the person that you really are, and not the person that you are convinced you should be by society. We are not working machines. We shouldn't be working for that long. 40 years, 30 years. Doesn't make any sense. But the reason is we don't know this unless we start to dig into information to understand things. So another thing that I saw that is very objective and clear, and people may not see this, and it's actually extremely obvious, which is money is going down in value throughout the past century. This is not a new thing. Money is going down in value pretty much since it was created. And money was initially created as a mean of exchange. So to facilitate exchanges between people, if I needed to buy a chicken and I have rice, for example, or vice versa, it was way easier to trade in money than to be trading on products. Because for me to sell rice and get a chicken, I would need someone looking for rice that had chickens. And with money, essentially you trade whatever you want by money. And everyone agreed upon this way of doing transactional operations. So money was introduced for you to trade things, never to save money or save wealth in a way. And actually, people are saving money, which is a habit that just makes you going against the flow of the river. Because if the money value is going down throughout time, you cannot see this. What you actually see is that pretty much going long in time, you understand everything is getting more expensive. Every product you want to buy tends to get more expensive throughout time, especially products that we heavily rely upon, like houses. We all need a house to live, or an apartment. And if we want this, we essentially have to spend a lot of money, and going through time, you have to spend more and more, because houses, apartments are considered investments. Everything that is an investment tends to go up in time in its own value. So while money keeps going down throughout pretty much all the time that it was created, investments are going up essentially the same time frame. And what happens is it's not a straight line. So there's moments in which you may see the value of the coins to either fluctuate up or down. It's not a straight line in the same direction. And the same happens for investments as well. Investments go up and down too. And essentially, what the world makes you convinced is that when it comes to investments, they always show you when things are going down. And the reason is they want to convince you that you should never invest. Because the moment everyone start to invest, their wealth would go up in time. And with enough time, they would understand that they don't have to work anymore for the rest of their lives. So they could essentially stop to work. And because these modern ages rely upon us to work for all our lives, to actually have people to scale their companies, they don't want you to see this. They want you to be convinced of having to work for 40 years and not even question it because you think you are free. You think this is the way you decided things to be, when in realize it's not true. If you understand when you try to step out of the system, when you try to make a different path, even the people that tends to be closer to you, and essentially the ones that should love you the most, tend to go against you. So if you try to make your own business, if you try to build a successful career in which you're not being an employee, you're actually being an entrepreneur, you will have your friends and your family, at least a big part of them, saying that you shouldn't try anything like that and stepping out of your own path when it comes to even be with you in the first place. And the reason is because everyone is convinced they should make the life the same way. Everyone is being taught to work for 40 years. But only a few that do know the truth, because they actually run the numbers and they understand what I'm speaking about. Just these people are capable of keep going into their own way to actually make life happen in the way that they dream about, which is freeing themselves from work, making life as you want, about whatever you want to live in life, about whatever you want to do. We all have free will. We all can decide what to do in life. And again, what happens is when you are presented with this type of information, you tend to think people are lying to you, that this is just an illusion. But if that's the case, you should know how actually there's people in the world that have so much more money than you in a matter of 10 years. They have so much more than what you can have in a life career. So if you think this way, how can you justify this to occur? How can this happen? And then we think, well, those people were probably rich in the first place. Or those people just had way more money than us since the beginning of their lives. But then there's people that come and tell you their story. And you see, they actually came from poverty. They were very poor in their lifetimes, around 20 sometimes. And in 10 years, they are very successful and very rich already. So you choose your own path. You can choose what to believe on. But if you choose to have your free will to look upon information, just like I did, you will get to a similar understanding. But realize that the world will always tell you a narrative that will convince you otherwise, that you should be working for 40 years and not questioning anything. And if you don't go that way, you will probably risk it all and lose it all, because that's what the world wants you to think, when in fact, life shouldn't even be taken as seriously as it is. Because we take life too seriously, we never make any risk of walking a path that is not for us to walk in terms of alignment with the society structure. So again, this comes back to the narrative that convinces you to just be a good employee for 40 years. So you understand this is essentially a psychological manipulation that is occurring to everyone. And it's no point to actually try to fight the system, because we cannot really change the system as it is implemented. What we can do is work in a way that favor us with this own system that is occurring. That's what entrepreneurs actually do. So it's important to understand that people that are free in their own way of living, people that are rich, they're not evil. They didn't create this system. The system was created a long time before we were born. And this system is implemented on a global basis. So it's not that easy to change things by trying to fight it. It's actually useless. What you have to do is to use the system as it is to make yourself successful. And this essentially means all the money that you're not using, you shouldn't be saving it. Because the moment you save money, money goes down in time on how much you can buy with that money, which is purchase power. So if you're losing purchase power on the money when the money is staying still on your bank account or at your house, what you have to do is to invest your money. And you can invest your money in multiple different ways. So what most people with a considerable amount of money do to invest is to allocate investments to investment funds, which essentially are structured that are similar to banks. And they do exactly the same things banks do with your money, which is they pick your money, that you put it there, and they invest your money. And while banks don't give you any returns on the money that you have there, and your money is being invested, you're not even aware. Investment funds do exactly the same, but they give you returns of the money you have there. They give you the returns of investments they are doing with your money. So investment funds have the same risk as banks. This is the truth. But you don't know this because no one is telling you this. But if you research what banks actually do, they loan money to people. And if they loan money to people, they're essentially investing money on those people so that those people do what they want or need to do with the money that they're asking to the bank. So in all the investments, things can go sideways, of course. But the truth is, your money is being invested since you were born and you put money into the bank. And you don't even know about it. But the truth is, if you have the money in your house, it doesn't really change anything. Because there the money is still losing value throughout time. And essentially you're getting the same result as you get in the bank. So investment funds is the only way you can profit on the money that you're saving and not investing. So in that case, you're actually investing, but the investment funds are the ones to put your money to work so that you don't have to do it yourself. But this is effectively the best way for you to make your money profitable on long term. So essentially, your money is not being as money on long term. Your money is being on investments, and investments go up in time perpetually, while money is going down in time perpetually. If you look into big time frames, you will understand what I mean. It's essentially a straight line up on investments and a straight line down on money. Money used to be a lot more value than what it is today. If you go back in time, a hand of generations, probably 5 generations, you will see you could buy a house with a price of $10, which is totally unthinkable. Even if it's $100, it's still totally unthinkable for us today. So, a long time ago, people only need to work for 1 month eventually to have enough money to buy a house. And today we're buying houses on loans that we are paying our lifetimes. And we are slaving ourselves into this society structure system. And we think we are free. So it's important to understand things as they are. Because if you start to look upon things and you start to understand what is behind the actual truth about what is going on, you understand it's nothing like it was told to you. It's nothing as people are convinced that it is. So everyone has its own free will. And another option that you have, if you want to consider to make money with your money, is to build upon companies. Companies essentially use their cash and reinvest the cash they have to expand the business and make the company itself provide more cash flow throughout time. So essentially, you're turning cash into cash flow. So cash flow tends to offset the value of money throughout time, which means even if money is going down perpetually over time, cash flow tends to grow, compounding over time, way faster than the value of the money is going down. And again, if you reinvest the money, you are not saving money, you are allocating your wealth resources into an investment, which is your own company. So you're not saving cash. The principle of you to succeed in this economic dynamic that we live on is to never save money as cash. In this case, never save wealth as money or cash. So, as long as you keep investing your money, you should always succeed, because investments are going up in time perpetually. So, this is a reality, and it's your choice to stop for a moment to change what you're doing, or think you don't have time to think about whatever and you keep being a slave for 40 years of work.